Imagine standing in the shadows while the world cheered for your heartbreak. Imagine hearing the applause that followed your humiliation. The claps that echoed through rooms where your pain was a punchline, your tears were entertainment, and your name was passed around like a trophy of their triumph. They smiled, they celebrated, they strutted under the lights of their own cruelty, as if hurting you was a performance worthy of a standing ovation. But what they didn't realize is that the stage they stood on was not theirs forever. The lights that once praised them are dimming. The curtain that once rose for their applause is now falling. And God is turning that stage into something else. Not a platform of praise, but a courtroom of consequence. We live in a world that confuses cruelty with courage. The louder the lie, the quicker it spreads. The sharper the insult, the more entertaining it becomes. And in this upside-down theater of life, the ones who wound the deepest are often the ones who get the most attention. They get likes, shares, approval, validation. For what? For breaking you, for mocking your kindness, for weaponizing your innocence. But here's what they forgot. There is a judge who sees all, and he does not sleep. There is a heaven that records not just what was done, but why it was done. And when God decides to respond, he does not whisper. He speaks in ways no audience can silence. Have you ever been the one sitting silently while others misunderstood your silence as weakness? Have you endured betrayal behind closed doors while the world outside saw only smiles and staged perfection? You were made to look like the villain in a story where you were the victim. And they were handed the microphone. They danced in your ruins. But what they called a spotlight was only God's way of gathering them in one place. Because every stage built to glorify cruelty eventually becomes the seat of judgment when the author of justice steps in. There is a divine reversal that waits for every righteous soul who has been wronged. What was once a stage for their mockery becomes the place where masks fall off. What was once a place of noise becomes a courtroom of silence. God doesn't need your revenge. He only needs your trust. And if you wait long enough, you'll watch him turn the very floor they strutted on into the ground that trembles beneath their guilt. This speech is for the silent ones, the misunderstood, the mistreated, the maligned. God has not forgotten you. He's just been waiting for the perfect moment to turn the stage. Now let's reflect deeply on what unfolds when divine justice begins its work. When the lights that once glorified their actions start burning through the masks they wore. When their applause dies into echoes of regret, and when the story no longer favors the liar, but the one who suffered in silence. There's something dangerous about applause. It's addictive, intoxicating, and deeply deceptive. For those who hurt you and received validation in return, the sound of clapping hands became their justification. They assumed that if people approved, then their actions must have been right. If the crowd laughed, then their cruelty must have been clever. If they received attention, then surely they were in the right. But this is one of the greatest illusions the world offers. Applause is not the measure of truth. It's only the echo of popularity. And popularity has never been a compass for righteousness. In every era, the crowd has been quick to celebrate the wrong and condemn the right. The same crowd that praised the liars who twisted your story once cheered for thieves, persecutors, and those who executed the innocent. Why? Because the crowd is rarely concerned with truth. It is often entertained by spectacle, by scandal, by those who are bold enough to destroy and cruel enough to make it look clever. They don't see the pain behind your eyes. They don't see the sleepless nights you spent trying to understand why the people you loved became performers in your downfall. They only see the show. But remember this, Applause can only reveal what the crowd craves, not what God commands. The claps they received weren't signs of divine approval. They were signs that the audience was as broken as the performance. If people are cheering for cruelty, it doesn't mean the cruel are right. It means society has become numb to the consequences of heartlessness. If people laugh when someone mocks your suffering, they're not innocent bystanders. They're co-signers in the crime. This is the pain that often haunts those who walk with integrity. You watch the guilty become celebrated, the manipulated become the hero, and the crowd roar louder with every lie spoken against you. It's enough to make you question your worth, your role, even your truth. But don't mistake the noise of the audience for the voice of justice. God is not moved by claps. He is moved by character. He does not crown the one who won the crowd. He crowns the one who walked through the fire and kept their soul intact. Let it be known, those who hurt you and bathed in applause only revealed the darkness of those who celebrated them. It wasn't their innocence that brought the cheers. It was their ability to entertain a broken audience. But applause fades, crowds move on, and when the lights go out, they'll be left alone with the echo of claps that cannot save them from the judgment of truth. God sees through the fog of performance. While they built their case on applause, God was building his judgment on intention. And the moment is coming when the applause will turn into silence, and in that silence, truth will rise. And it will not be kind to those who once danced in the limelight of your pain. It's easy to believe in moments of betrayal that the ones who hurt you are rising higher while you fall lower. They look confident, elevated, and celebrated. They stand tall on their stage, commanding attention, drawing eyes, owning the narrative. But what we often forget is that stages are temporary. They are made of wood, not of stone. They are crafted for moments, not for legacies. And the God who watches over justice does not build stages to exalt cruelty. He allows them to exist so the audience is gathered when judgment begins. Their platform may look like a reward, but in truth it is a setup. What appears to be elevation is often exposure in disguise. God allows some people to rise, not because they deserve the height, but because their fall needs to be witnessed. The higher they go in arrogance, the louder the silence will be when they fall. The bigger the stage, the wider the audience, and the wider the audience, the more complete the justice. It's not about embarrassing them. It's about restoring balance to what was broken when they mocked your pain. They never knew that the applause they enjoyed was the very rope tying them to accountability. Each cheer was a witness. Every post, every laugh, every smear of your name that brought them claps. God took note, and as their stage grew, so did the record. The louder they boasted, the clearer the case. And now, when their performance begins to crumble, the same crowd that cheered will be forced to confront the truth. They weren't watching a hero rise. They were watching someone build their own courtroom. This is the brilliance of divine timing. God waits. He lets the lights shine. He allows the crowd to gather. He permits the lies to breathe. Because justice done in silence rarely teaches anyone. But justice done in public corrects generations. When their stage becomes their judgment seat, everyone will remember. Everyone will remember, everyone will see how far they went, how high they climbed, and how suddenly they were brought down. Not by human hands, but by the weight of their own guilt and the hand of a just God. So if you're still watching their rise, don't be discouraged. If they seem untouchable, unpunished, even praised, don't despair. God is not absent. He's arranging the chairs, turning on the lights, and giving them the illusion of control. Because when the time comes to speak, he doesn't whisper, he declares. And when he does, no audience in the world can deny what they see. The very stage they celebrated became the place where justice stood tall, and mercy finally spoke for you. Public actions are often mistaken for strength. When someone mocks you in front of others, speaks ill of you, or turns your pain into a joke for their audience, it may seem like they're winning. They appear confident, fearless, even dominant. But the truth is quite the opposite. Public mockery is not a display of power, it's a mirror of inner poverty. When they mocked you publicly, they weren't revealing your weakness, they were exposing their own emptiness. And while others clapped, God was watching something far deeper than words. He was watching the condition of their soul. It takes nothing to laugh at someone's tears. It takes no wisdom to belittle someone's pain. The easiest way to entertain the broken-hearted crowd is by throwing stones at someone more vulnerable. It gives them a momentary illusion of power. And that's all it ever is, an illusion. The person who mocked you revealed more about themselves in that moment than you ever could by defending yourself. Because behind every public insult lies a private wound, and behind every staged attack lies a desperate need to be seen, to be cheered, to feel superior, even if it means stepping on the innocent. But the thing about public mockery is that it doesn't age well. It echoes, it lingers, it becomes part of their identity. And while the crowd may forget, the spirit world does not. Heaven takes notes. The heart they bruised was not just any heart, it was the one that remained silent, chose peace, and trusted in something greater. And when someone mocks that kind of heart, they're not just offending a person, they're challenging God's presence in that person. They may not see it now, but what they threw carelessly into the crowd will return to them privately, as isolation, regret, and unrest. You may feel tempted to prove yourself, to shout back, to explain, to correct the record, but you don't need to, because God doesn't measure people by their performances. He weighs them by their motives. And when mockery flows from lips stained with ego and insecurity, He does not let it go unanswered. Their stage becomes smaller, their circle becomes tighter, and eventually the echoes of their own mockery become louder than any praise they once received. So let them perform. Let them play the part. Let them shine under the fragile lights of public validation. Because in the silence of their private moments, when the crowd is gone and the mirrors don't lie, they will see what they became. And that moment, more than anything, is the beginning of divine reckoning. Not because they were loud, but because they were unkind. Not because they made people laugh, but because they turned your dignity into a joke. And heaven never forgets the price of that cruelty. Words are powerful. They build or break, they heal or harm, they bless or curse. And those who hurt you never realized the weight of their words. They thought they were free to speak, free to twist, to lie, to gossip, to slander, without consequence. Every phrase they uttered against you, every story they told, every false image they painted was another plank laid onto the stage they thought was for their celebration. But what they didn't see is that each word was being recorded, not just by ears, but by eternity. And when the day of reckoning arrives, those same words won't be forgotten. They'll be replayed as evidence. God does not overlook the careless sentences flung like daggers. He does not ignore the tone, the timing, the intent behind what was said. For while man hears the surface, God hears the heart. They may have claimed it was a joke. They may have pretended it was harmless, but God saw what was beneath the humor, the jealousy, the pride, the malice, the thirst for attention at your expense. And in His court, intention matters more than presentation. Their words built their reputation, but they also built their case. Every exaggerated story, every lie framed as truth, every conversation meant to make you look small in front of others, all of it becomes evidence in the hands of divine justice. And unlike human courts where truth is often blurred by manipulation, God's court is illuminated by perfect wisdom. Nothing is hidden, nothing is lost. Even the whispers they thought no one heard carry a sound in heaven. You don't need to record their words. You don't need to argue or defend, because God has already preserved the truth in its entirety. And when the time comes for accountability, He won't need to use your voice. He will use theirs. The very mouths that spoke against you will become the witnesses to their downfall, not because you sought revenge, but because truth is its own advocate and justice is its own reward. So let them keep talking. Let them build their narratives. Let them enjoy the spotlight of their own falsehoods, because every word they use to rise will become the very weight that pulls them down. And in that moment, when God plays back the truth and the audience finally sees the heart behind the words, they won't just lose their stage, they'll lose the illusion they built their life on. And you, the one they spoke against, will not need to say a single word. Because silence in the face of injustice is not weakness. It's faith in a judge who speaks with more authority than the entire crowd combined. And when he speaks, there will be no doubt. Every word matters. Every lie is accounted for, and every injustice finds its reckoning. There are few things more misunderstood than silence. To the world, silence is often viewed as surrender. When you didn't fight back, they thought you lost. When you didn't respond to their accusations, they assumed guilt. When you didn't defend your name, they took it as proof that they were right. But silence, when guided by God, is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is restraint rooted in strength. And what they saw as your retreat was, in reality, God gathering evidence. God was writing His case. You see, silence has a sacred language. It speaks in a way words cannot. It reveals trust, not in people, but in the One who judges all things righteously. When you chose not to scream, not to argue, not to match their noise with more noise, you positioned yourself under divine protection. You became untouchable, not because of your silence, but because of the One who stood with you in it. Every time you bit your tongue when you could have exposed them, heaven saw. Every time you cried behind closed doors instead of retaliating in public, the angels recorded your pain. Every time you were misunderstood, accused, mocked, and you said nothing, God did not see weakness, He saw obedience. And obedience, even in silence, is louder than 1,000 defenses. The world is quick to validate those who speak first, yell loudest, and entertain the crowd with their version of the story. But God is not swayed by volume. He listens to the heart, and while they were busy performing, you were waiting. You were holding your peace, even when your spirit screamed for justice. That wasn't silence. It was surrender to something higher. It was your quiet yes to God's timing. And here's the powerful truth they never saw coming. While they used their words to gain followers, God was using your silence to build a testimony. He was crafting a moment when the truth would stand without your voice needing to rise. He was writing a narrative where your vindication wouldn't come from your explanation. It would come from His revelation. So let them misinterpret your silence. Let them boast about your lack of defense. Let them enjoy the illusion that they've won because you didn't speak. What they don't realize is that silence is often the loudest sound in the court of heaven. And when God speaks on your behalf, when He reveals what you never tried to prove, they will finally understand that your silence was not a sign of defeat. It was a declaration of trust. They wanted a reaction. They expected a breakdown. But what they got was the sound of God sharpening justice in the quiet. And when he moves, your silence will echo louder than all their noise combined. Not because you fought, but because you let him fight for you. They loved the spotlight. They thrived in it. They used it to charm, manipulate, deceive, and dominate. It became their weapon and their stage. While you stood in the shadows, trying to piece your heart back together, they basked in attention. The light gave them power. It made them feel untouchable. But here is the danger no one tells them about. The spotlight that flatters can also reveal, and the same light that once blinded others to their darkness will soon expose everything they tried to hide. You see, the spotlight isn't loyal. It doesn't choose sides based on truth. It simply follows whoever steps into it. And for a time, it followed them. It magnified their voice. It made their stories seem more believable, their cruelty more palatable, their betrayal more acceptable. But what they forgot is that light doesn't just illuminate charm, it also exposes character. And eventually the brightness they craved will begin to reveal the cracks in their performance. They thought they were playing the lead role in a show built on half-truths and manipulation. But God has been watching the entire time. He allowed them center stage, not because they deserved it, but because there's no better place for exposure than under the light. And when God starts revealing what lies beneath their carefully crafted image, there will be no shadows left to hide in. People will begin to see through the act. The audience will grow quiet. Questions will rise. Suspicion will replace praise. The same mouths that once applauded will whisper in discomfort. The spotlight won't be as kind anymore. It will become a mirror. And mirrors don't lie. It will highlight the duplicity, the inconsistency, the hollowness. Their stage will not collapse from outside attack. It will fall under the weight of its own dishonesty. And here's the truth they never anticipated. While they were shining for the world, you were being refined in private. While they were building a platform, God was building your foundation. While they were busy being seen, you were busy being shaped. They ran after fame, you chased healing. They spoke lies, you held truth. And now, as their spotlight begins to reveal their shadows, your integrity will rise from the dark like a quiet sunrise no one saw coming. God does not rush the unveiling. He waits until the moment is perfect, until the crowd is silent enough to hear the truth clearly. And when he turns that light from flattery to exposure, no mask will survive. No carefully rehearsed role will save them. They will be seen, not as they wanted to be seen, but as they really are. So do not envy those who hold the spotlight today. Do not be discouraged by their applause, because the same light that elevated them will soon turn on them. And when it does, their platform becomes their prison, their stage becomes their sentence, and their performance becomes their proof. What blinded others will now show everyone what you saw all along, and the truth, your truth, will finally stand tall under the same light they once used to cast you aside. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, especially when you're the one who's been hurt. Justice doesn't always come quickly. You cry out for it, you pray for it, you long for it while watching those who wronged you prosper, smile and even be praised. You wonder how long God will allow it. How long must the innocent bleed while the guilty shine? But what you must understand is this: God is not slow, He is strategic. His delays are not rejections, they are rehearsals for something greater. God doesn't rush justice, because when He moves, He makes sure everyone is watching. The crowd that cheered for them, God saw it. The ones who laughed at your pain, He heard them. The people who stood by in silence while you were torn down, He remembered them. So He waits. Not because He is indifferent to your suffering, but because He is gathering every witness. You see, When God delivers justice, He doesn't want it whispered. He wants it seen. Because real justice is not just about restoration, it's about revelation. It's about making sure the truth is undeniable. And for that, sometimes the stage must be built higher, the lights must shine brighter, the crowd must be larger, so that when the fall comes, no one can explain it away. And make no mistake, it will come. They thought your silence meant defeat. They thought their applause meant they were untouchable. They thought the delay meant God wasn't going to act. But God has never ignored a broken heart. He has never overlooked the cry of the righteous. He has never missed a single moment of your suffering. In fact, every moment of your pain has been collected like precious treasure. Every tear you shed has been counted. Every lie told about you has been recorded. And every bit of false praise they received has been weighed. God does not forget, and when the time is right, He turns the stage they built into a place of exposure, not because He wants to embarrass them, but because He wants to vindicate you. He wants those who watched your pain to see your rise. He wants those who mocked your silence to witness your strength. He wants those who clapped for cruelty to realize they were standing on the wrong side of the story. It's a divine reversal, and it doesn't just happen privately. It happens publicly. Why? Because you were hurt publicly. You were humiliated where others could see. Your name was dragged in front of spectators. Your character was questioned before people who didn't even know you. So God, in His justice, will not settle the matter behind closed doors. He will bring it full circle, right where it began. But He's been waiting until the crowd is large enough. Because this isn't just about you and them. It's about what others will learn through your story. It's about teaching generations what happens when you touch a pure heart with dirty hands. It's about showing the world what real righteousness looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, not vengeful, but quiet, resilient, and unwavering. It's about making sure the fall of the arrogant and the rise of the faithful are seen side by side, so no one confuses performance with purity again. And when the moment comes, when God says now, nothing can stop it. The lies collapse, the image crumbles, the mask falls, and the truth, which had been silent for so long, speaks with a voice no one can silence. It doesn't need to shout. Its presence alone is deafening. It will wonder how it happened. They will try to explain it. Some will be shocked. Others will pretend they always knew. But you will know. You will know that while they laughed, God listened. While they mocked, God measured. While they performed, God prepared. And when He brought justice, He didn't just restore what you lost. He made sure the ones who applauded your pain had front row seats to your redemption. This is the mystery of divine timing. He waits until the last word has been spoken against you, until the last person has laughed, until the entire room is full. Then, when everyone least expects it, He enters the scene, not with noise, but with undeniable power. And no one, not even your loudest accuser, will be able to deny what they see, because justice is not just about what happens, it's about who sees it happen. And you will stand in the very place where they tried to bury your voice. You will speak with the authority that only comes from surviving what was meant to destroy you. And they will realize that the applause they once received was never proof of victory. It was only borrowed time before judgment. So hold your peace. Keep walking in silence if you must. Let them laugh. Let them shine. Let them believe the delay is a dismissal, because when God decides the crowd is ready, He will flip the script, and you won't need to do anything to prove your side. The truth will speak. The audience will see, And the very ones who clapped for your destruction will have no choice but to watch your restoration in full view. There comes a moment in every story when silence breaks, the curtain falls, and the truth, long hidden, long ridiculed, rises to take its rightful place. You waited in the shadows, heart torn, voice muted, wondering if God had seen what they did, wondering if justice would ever arrive, if the pain you endured would be remembered, if the lies told about you would ever be undone. And now, as this chapter comes to a close, understand this: God has not just been watching, He's been writing. They got applause for hurting you. They stood on platforms built from your pain. They turned your silence into spectacle, your dignity into a joke, and your heartbreak into their personal stage. But what they didn't realize, what they could never see in their fleeting moments of fame, was that the very spotlight they craved was never meant for their victory. It was only there so everyone would see what happens when God steps in. You see, there is no justice more complete than the kind that comes when God writes the final act. He doesn't just expose lies. He reveals them in the very space where they were once celebrated. He doesn't just lift the broken. He lifts them in front of those who cheered for their fall. He doesn't just correct the story, He rewrites it so powerfully that even the spectators can no longer deny what's true. What was once their stage has now become His courtroom. Every cheer they received was not a mark of their righteousness, it was a countdown. Every laugh at your expense was not a sign of victory, it was a gathering of witnesses. And now, when justice comes, it won't be quiet, it will be divine, visible, undeniable, and every eye that once watched your humiliation will now witness your rise. So to the one listening, who was betrayed but remained silent, who was hurt but kept walking, who was mocked but never fought back, your story is not over. In fact, it's just beginning, because God is not done. And what He's about to do with your life will silence every voice that tried to bury you, not with vengeance, but with undeniable favor, not with noise, but with unshakable glory. Let this truth settle into your soul. The same crowd that clapped when you were crushed will one day witness the hand of God raise you up. And when that moment comes, you won't need to say a word, because the applause that once fueled their pride will die in their throats, and the light that once blinded them will reveal everything they tried to hide. God will turn the very stage where they hurt you into their judgment seat, and you will walk out, not just whole, but honored, not just healed, but held, not just vindicated, but victorious.